It was raining heavily that night. The kind of rain that drowns the city lights and washes away all the noise, leaving behind only silence and pain. A black luxury car had crashed near an abandoned construction site on the outskirts of the city. The airbags had deployed, the engine hissed, and a faint voice trembled through the darkness. "Please, don't hurt me. I can't walk." The woman's voice was weak, filled with fear and exhaustion. Her name was Clara Evans, a powerful CEO known for her cold heart and iron fists in the corporate world. But tonight, there was no power left in her, only a broken leg, a soaked body, and trembling hands begging for help in the middle of nowhere. Before we continue, cloud with rain heartbreak. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stars of Kindness. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world how powerful compassion can be. Sparkling heart. Clara had spent her life climbing the corporate ladder. She was a name everyone feared, sharp, ruthless, and never wrong. Her empire stretched across continents, but her heart had turned into a fortress. She had no time for friends, no patience for family, and no room for love. But that night, as she lay half-conscious in the wreckage, she wasn't the CEO of Evans Enterprises anymore. She was just a fragile woman begging the universe for mercy. Hours later, a dim flashlight cut through the darkness. A man's footsteps echoed closer, crunching over gravel. His clothes were soaked, his boots muddy, and his voice calm but tired. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father and former paramedic who now worked as a construction site guard, trying to provide for his little daughter, Lily. When he saw Clara's bloodied hand reaching out from the crushed car, he didn't hesitate. He pulled her out, wrapped his old jacket around her, and whispered, "You're safe now. I've got you." He carried her all the way to his small wooden cabin nearby. It was barely more than a shelter, but it was warm. His daughter, Lily, only 8 years old, rushed to fetch a blanket. Clara's designer clothes were torn, her face pale, her leg twisted in an unnatural angle. She couldn't stop crying. For the first time in years, she wasn't in control, she was vulnerable, scared, and at the mercy of a stranger. The days that followed were strange. Clara had a broken leg and couldn't move without help. Ethan called an ambulance, but the storm had cut off the roads and power lines. It would take days for anyone to reach them. So he did what he could, treated her wounds with the little medical supplies he had, fed her soup, and made her comfortable on an old couch. At first, she resisted his help. She was used to commanding people, not being cared for. But Ethan was patient. He didn't care who she was, he just saw someone who needed kindness. Each day, Lily would sit beside Clara, asking her questions about her big city life. At first, Clara ignored her, too proud to talk. But slowly, something in her began to thaw. The child's innocent laughter, her simple joy at finding wildflowers or drawing pictures, reminded Clara of a world she had long forgotten, the world before money and success had stolen her heart. Ethan worked long hours, often returning with wet clothes and tired eyes. Yet, he always made sure Clara was fed and comfortable before resting. Sometimes she watched him from the window, this man who had nothing, yet gave so much. His kindness was effortless. He didn't expect anything in return. It confused her. It humbled her. One night, unable to sleep, Clara asked him, "Why are you helping me?" Ethan looked at her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing," he said. "And because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where people still care." That answer stayed with her. Days turned into weeks. The storm cleared, and the world slowly reconnected. But by then, something inside Clara had changed. She started helping around the house, folding laundry, reading stories to Lily, and laughing for the first time in years. She had spent a lifetime surrounded by luxury, yet she had never felt peace until she stayed in that tiny, broken cabin with a man who taught her what real strength looked like. Ethan didn't treat her like a CEO. He treated her like a person, a woman capable of kindness, not just control. The way he spoke to his daughter, the way he stayed humble despite hardship, it broke every wall around her heart. She began to see how cruelly she had treated others in her pursuit of success. When the rescue finally arrived, Clara didn't want to leave. She offered Ethan money, more than enough to change his life, but he refused. "I didn't help you for that," he said softly. Just promise me you'll be kind to someone who needs it someday. That's all. Those words echoed in her soul. Months passed. Clara healed physically, but her heart carried a scar, a beautiful reminder of humility. She returned to her company, but her leadership changed. She began new welfare programs, supported single parents, and ensured her employees were treated with respect and compassion. People were shocked. They said she wasn't the same CEO anymore. And she wasn't. Because one storm, one stranger, and one little girl had shown her what truly mattered. Every week, she visited Ethan and Lily. Sometimes she brought groceries, sometimes books for Lily, and sometimes just herself, to sit by the fire and talk. Slowly, something deeper grew between them, an unspoken bond that needed no words. Clara found herself smiling again, living again. She realized that happiness wasn't about owning the world, it was about sharing it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lily hugged Clara and said, "Dad says you're like the sunshine after the storm." Tears filled Clara's eyes as she whispered, "No, sweetheart, your dad is the storm that taught me how to start again." The story of a powerful woman brought down by fate and lifted again by kindness became a lesson for many. Because sometimes, it's not the wealth or power that defines us, it's how we rise when we're broken, and who helps us stand again. The city lights glimmered like distant stars against the glass walls of Evans Enterprises, but inside the CEO's office, it was silent, eerily silent. Clara Evans sat behind her polished desk, the woman who once ruled her empire with steel and certainty. Yet tonight, her reflection in the dark window didn't look like power, it looked like longing. Her fingers brushed against the edge of a small paper drawing, Lily's drawing. A stick figure family with 3 smiling faces. Above it, written in a child's messy handwriting, "Me, Dad, and Miss Clara." It had been months since the storm. Months since she left that small cabin in the woods and the man who saved her life. She had healed. Yes, her leg was fine, her company was thriving again, but something inside her still limped. Every boardroom meeting, every award, every applause felt hollow. Because no matter how high she climbed, she couldn't forget the man who taught her how to stand again, Ethan. Before we continue revolving hearts. If you believe that kindness can heal hearts and love can bloom from the unlikeliest moments, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stars of Kindness. Your one act of support keeps stories like this alive and spreading hope in the world. Globe sparkles. Clara had changed everything about her company since her return. Her once cold and competitive empire was now filled with warmth. She introduced flexible hours for parents, built daycare facilities, and even started a foundation to help struggling families. Her employees whispered about her transformation, calling her the new Clara. But deep down, Clara knew it wasn't new. It was real. It was the version of her that Ethan had unknowingly awakened. One crisp autumn morning, while signing donation papers for a single-parent relief program, Clara noticed the name on the file, Cole Family Housing Grant, Ethan Cole. Her pen froze mid-signature. Her heart skipped. Could it be him? She stared at the address, a small town near the hills, the same place where she'd once nearly died, and been reborn. Without thinking twice, she canceled all her meetings that day. Hours later, her black car pulled up in front of a modest community center. Children were playing outside, laughter echoing through the chilly air. And there he was, Ethan, helping a group of volunteers carry boxes of donated supplies. He looked different somehow, still humble, still gentle, but there was a strength in him that made her chest tighten. For a moment, she just watched. The way he smiled at the kids, the way his daughter ran up to him and hugged his leg, it was as if time itself paused. Then, as if sensing her presence, Ethan turned. Their eyes met, and both froze. Clara smiled first, nervously, shyly, almost like a stranger. "Hi," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan's lips curved slowly. "You came back." It was a reunion without words, yet filled with everything they hadn't said. He offered her coffee inside the small center. Lily came running in, squealing with joy, hugging Clara tightly. "Miss Clara, you came." That innocent voice broke whatever wall was left between them. Clara knelt, hugging her back, tears silently spilling down her face. Over the next few weeks, Clara found reasons, excuses, really, to visit the center often. She helped fund renovations, brought supplies, and even played with the children. But every time, her real reason was Ethan. They'd talk late into the evening, about life, pain, and hope. He told her about his struggles as a single father, the nights he'd almost given up. She told him about her loneliness behind glass towers. Slowly, two broken worlds began to merge. One evening, as they sat outside watching Lily chase fireflies, Ethan turned to her and said quietly, "You don't have to do all this, you know." She looked at him, puzzled. "Do what?" He smiled faintly. "Help us. Change everything. You've already done enough just by showing up." Clara's eyes softened. "Maybe that's the point," she said. "Maybe showing up is everything." From that night on, something invisible connected them. They didn't name it. They didn't need to. Their bond grew through shared silences, through acts of care too small for words, like the way Ethan would bring her tea when it was cold, or how she'd fix his shirt buttons after his long volunteer shifts. Lily, of course, noticed first. "Dad," she whispered one night, "do you like Miss Clara?" Ethan smiled gently. "I think, Miss Clara makes the world a little brighter." Clara started visiting their home again, the same cabin where everything began. Only this time, she wasn't broken. She was whole. And she brought life with her, flowers, laughter, warmth. Together, they built something beautiful, a new branch of her foundation called the Second Chance Project, designed to help people who had lost everything start again. It was Ethan's idea, but she made it real. As months turned into a year, the world began to notice. News outlets called her the CEO with a heart. Her story became a symbol of rebirth. But fame wasn't what she wanted anymore. What mattered most to her were quiet mornings when Lily would hand her a daisy, or evenings when Ethan would sit beside her by the fire, both watching the sky fade into twilight. Then came the day that tested her heart again. The board of her company pressured her to move overseas for expansion, a dream she'd once died for. But now, that dream felt empty. She was torn. Ethan told her softly, "Clara, don't stay because of me. Stay because of who you've become." His words cut deep. That night, she walked through the town alone, the wind cold against her face. She looked at the families she'd helped, the laughter, the warmth, and realized, this was home. Not the glass towers or penthouse suites. The place where kindness lived. Where she learned to love. The next morning, she announced her decision to step down as CEO and focus fully on the Second Chance Project. Her old colleagues called her crazy, but Clara smiled through tears. For the first time, she said, "I'm not losing something, I'm finding everything." When she told Ethan, he didn't speak. He just pulled her into his arms, holding her the way someone holds something too precious to let go. Lily clapped her hands, laughing, "Does this mean Miss Clara will stay forever?" And for once, Clara didn't need to hide behind pride or fear. She smiled, eyes glistening. "Yes, sweetheart. Forever sounds perfect." The morning sun painted golden streaks across the small town of Willow Creek. Birds sang, laughter echoed from the new daycare center, and the world finally seemed at peace. The Second Chance Project, Clara and Ethan's dream, had become a beacon of hope for hundreds of families. People came here with broken pasts, and left with mended hearts. Clara stood by the window of her new home, the same cabin where her life had once shattered, now transformed into a cozy, love-filled haven. Ethan was outside fixing the garden fence, while Lily chased butterflies with her bright laughter filling the air. It was the sound of everything Clara had ever wished for but never known she needed. She smiled softly, touching the scar on her leg, the reminder of how pain had led her to purpose. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the powerful CEO in glass towers. She was a woman who loved, who lived, and who finally understood what home meant. Before the story unfolds further, revolving hearts. If you believe that love can rise even from pain, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stars of Kindness. Sparkling heart, your support keeps stories like this alive, stories that remind us that even the smallest kindness can change the biggest lives. Globe sparkles. But peace has a way of testing those who have learned to love it. One quiet afternoon, while preparing for an event at the center, Clara felt dizzy. The world blurred. Her heart raced, her breath shortened, and she collapsed on the floor. The next thing she saw was the bright white of a hospital ceiling. Ethan's worried eyes hovered above her, his hands gripping hers. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, voice trembling. Doctors later told her it was exhaustion. Years of overwork had caught up with her. She needed rest, both physical and emotional. Ethan sat beside her bed through the night, never leaving her side. Lily brought her hand-drawn cards saying, "Get well soon, Miss Clara. We love you." Lying there, weak but alive, Clara realized something profound. She had built an empire out of love and kindness, but she'd forgotten to give that same love to herself. The woman who once never stopped working now had to learn to pause, to breathe, to just be. Days passed. Slowly, she recovered, but during her healing, the foundation faced a crisis. A major donor pulled out, threatening to shut down several shelters they had built. Panic spread among the staff. Ethan tried to handle everything, but it was overwhelming. For the first time, he broke down in front of Clara. "I can't do this without you," he said, voice cracking. Clara reached for his hand. "You won't have to. Not ever again." With trembling strength, she stood up, determination burning brighter than pain. The next day, she called an emergency conference, speaking not as a CEO, but as a survivor, as a woman who believed in second chances. Her voice shook, but her words carried fire. "When I was broken, a man and his daughter saved me, not with money, but with love. This foundation isn't mine. It's theirs. It's ours. It belongs to everyone who still believes in kindness when the world forgets it." Her speech went viral. Donations poured in from across the country. News anchors called her the woman who turned pain into power. But to Ethan and Lily, she was just Clara, the woman who brought warmth back into their lives. Weeks later, during the reopening of the main community center, Ethan surprised Clara. As the crowd cheered and the ribbon was cut, he stepped forward with Lily by his side, holding a small box. Clara looked at him, confused. "Ethan, what?" He smiled softly, eyes glistening. "You once asked me why I helped you that night," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I think I finally have the answer. Because my heart knew you were the one who'd help me too, not just to live, but to love again." He knelt down. The entire crowd gasped. Lily giggled, jumping up and down. Ethan opened the box, a simple, elegant ring, nothing flashy, just real. "Just like their love. Clara Evans," he whispered, "will you keep showing up, every day, for the rest of our lives?" Tears streamed down her face. She nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The crowd erupted in applause. Lily hugged them both, shouting, "Now we're a real family." Months later, the three of them stood on the same hill where the storm had once trapped Clara years ago. The sky was clear, the wind gentle. Clara whispered, "It all began here, when I thought my life was ending." Ethan smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "Sometimes endings are just miracles in disguise." Lily picked a wildflower and placed it in Clara's hand. "For you, Mommy," she said shyly. That one word, "Mommy," broke Clara's heart open in the most beautiful way. She knelt, hugging her tightly as tears of joy ran down her face. In that moment, everything came full circle. Pain had become purpose. Loneliness had turned to love. A stranger's kindness had rewritten destiny. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, their silhouettes glowed against the golden light, a promise that even in the darkest nights, love always finds a way to shine. Rose, if this story touched your soul, if you believe that kindness can change lives, please like, share, and subscribe to Stars of Kindness. Your love and support help spread hope to hearts that need it most. Revolving Hearts.